In a small, quiet town, a boy named Rahul was spending his summer break obsessed with a single question. He watched the world around him and felt a burning need to understand the mechanics of achievement, how one person stays small while another grows. He sought answers from his grandfather, Nanaji. He was a man who didn't care for long lectures or abstract theories. He preferred to let the physical world do the talking. One afternoon, Rahul finally cornered him. He asked the most direct version of his question: how does someone actually become successful in life? Nanaji didn't offer a quote or a book. Instead, he led Rahul to a local nursery, where they bought two identical saplings to settle the matter through an experiment. They were about to find that the most complex questions about human potential usually have very simple, grounded answers hidden in nature. Back at the house, Nanaji began the setup for their 5-year study. He split the two saplings into two completely different environments. He placed one in a protective pot inside the living room. The other he planted outside in the raw, rocky soil of the backyard. Nanaji then asked Rahul to make a prediction. Which of these two identical plants would be larger and more robust in the future? Rahul's logic was hard to argue with. He pointed to the indoor plant, noting it was safe behind glass, deflecting storms, heat waves, and animals. To him, the outdoor plant was at a massive disadvantage. Most of us would make the same bet. We are naturally inclined to believe that minimizing risk is the most reliable way to ensure a positive result. But the experiment was designed to test a different possibility, that the very things we think are protecting us might actually be the things holding us back. 5 years later, Rahul returned. Now older, he went straight to his grandfather, ready to see the indoor plant's victory finally confirmed. They looked at the indoor plant first. It was alive and green, but it was still just a small, thin shrub, barely any larger than the day they bought it. Then they walked outside. The second sapling had been replaced by a massive, towering tree. Its trunk was thick, and its canopy was wide enough to provide shade for the entire yard. Rahul couldn't understand how the plant that faced 5 years of environmental trauma had managed to grow 10 times larger than the one kept in perfect safety. The visual was clear. Avoiding failure and achieving growth are two very different biological paths. Nanaji began to explain the specific hidden mechanics that allowed the outdoor tree to thrive. High-velocity winds forced the tree's roots deeper into the earth. Summer heat drove its branches to stretch wider. Contrast this with the indoor plant. Facing no environmental pressure, its roots simply hit the pot's edge and stopped, curling into a stagnant knot. The environment wasn't an obstacle to the tree's growth. It was the essential requirement for it. Strength isn't a default setting for the tree. It's a structural reaction to the specific pressures it was forced to withstand. Looking at the towering oak, Nanaji turned to Rahul to connect these physical observations to the question of human success. He explained that if we spend our lives engineering a path that avoids every possible struggle, we are essentially choosing the life of the indoor plant. From this perspective, a setback or a difficult season isn't an unfair punishment or a sign that you're failing. Instead, these obstacles are the tension required to trigger your own root growth. They are the only way to find out what your internal capacities actually are. A perfectly comfortable, risk-averse life feels safe, but like the terracotta pot, it creates a hard boundary that your potential can never break through. To reach the scale of the tree in the yard, you have to be willing to leave the safety of the room and grow into the storm, eventually shattering the limits of the pot you started in.